And so I think based on their level of interest and it appears excitement at meeting me, I think it'll feel very comfortable. I'm sure they'll be, and she's affectionate as I am. So I said, we're going to hug the first time. There's no question about that. And so, and I wrote a blog about it on our Trailblazers website, and I think I said, I don't know if I will ever call them mom and dad. I said, but they are, and they don't have to replace the people that were the great adoptive parents that raised me. But at this point in my life, especially with those parents not being here anymore, and I was raised an only child, and I always was thankful I had friends that welcomed me into their homes on holidays, and I always loved being around big families. And apparently up until they had a great-grandmother pass away last year, there's 9 generations of kids in this family. So there's clearly plenty of people to go around, and sounds like they all welcome new people into the fold, and clearly I have an interesting story that ties, and I guess as my sister who's alive said to her mom just the other day when she heard the news, she said, it's great, this isn't a half brother, this is a brother. And so she said, and she even told her mom, she said, tell him, not to wait too long. I mean, I want to talk to him as soon as possible. Probably stay at a hotel, but I'm only coming to see you guys, so whatever you plan will be fine. And so I'm sure it'll be emotional, but I think all good and all very comfortable and very relaxed. I think because everything so far feels very, very right, which is probably more than I could have even hoped to feel. Yeah, it's interesting because my adopted parents, I haven't had one of them for quite a while. I had a dad who passed away when I was a sophomore in high school, and a freshman in high school, and a mom who passed away when I was a sophomore in college. So I haven't had a parent since 1981. But I always knew I was adopted, and I didn't necessarily think there was anything odd or different about it. So I'm not sure that I ever felt something was missing that I needed to replace as soon as both my parents passed away. And clearly that must have been the case because it was a long time before I really gave it some serious consideration. And I think part of it was I was a little daunted by the challenge of how do I go about finding out more information. If I get a name, what do I do then? And so I don't know if it was turning 50 earlier this year, but something seemed to motivate me a little more this particular year. And I always knew she was a teenage girl, and I confirmed it that she was 17 at the time she had me, and my father was 23. So looking at ages, I thought, she'd be 68 at the oldest now, and with as long as women live, good chance she still might be alive. But I still wasn't sure what to do, even with this information. I mentioned what was going on, and I said, does anybody have any experiences with good or bad adoption search agencies, because I think I'd like to maybe pursue now trying to find information about my mother, more so than just the name. And so sure enough, the Blazer fans being the great people that they are, I gave out my Twitter address, and they had a bunch of different suggestions, and one of them was theadoptionspecialist.com. My birth mother had a different last name, and she was married, and her husband was still alive, and I noticed that shortly after having me at the age of 17, that she had 2 daughters at age 19 and age 20, and they had the same last name as her husband. So as I was reading the report, I was thinking, I wonder, and I didn't say out loud what I was thinking, but I had an additional thought that I wasn't sure I would have. And she came to the phone and said hello, and I said Barbara, and she said yes, and I said this is Brian Wheeler, and I didn't know if my name would mean anything to her, and she didn't say anything when I did, so I kept going, and I said, I recently saw a copy of my birth certificate, and it had your name and your signature on it, and I have reason to believe that you're my birth mother. And she said, what? And I repeated it, and she said, started asking me questions. Where were you born? I said, Chicago, Illinois. When were you born? January 18, 1962. Where did you grow up? And I said, Chicago. I said, well, we moved to LA when I was 2 months old. And she said, that was what I was looking to hear. She said, well, I guess I am. Do you know the whereabouts, or have you spoken at all over the years to my birth father? And she chuckled and she said, well, very soon I'll be celebrating my 50th wedding anniversary with him. He's my husband. So not only did I find her, but I found him. I found out of her 2 daughters, one unfortunately passed away in her sleep, 43, very healthy 3 years ago, but the other's still alive and has had 3 sons. One passed away, but has 2 sons still. So I found a mother, a father, a sister, and 2 nephews, as it turns out.
Into the arms of another.